What's up, guys? Welcome back to Almost Functional 40K. Here today with the wonderful Aiden Barkley to talk about where we feel Wolves are at after we just got the Champions of Fenris detachment today, plus all the other rule changes and detachments that have dropped over this Grotmas season. How are you doing tonight, Aiden?
I'm doing fine. I'm excited for all the changes. I've got some big feelings about the Champions of Fenris attachment. We'll get into that, but I'm doing fine.
Yeah, I mean, well, that might as well be one of the first things we hop into. That's the one everybody's talking about today. So I was less than overwhelmed with it. What are your thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, this detachment, I think they saw the power of the Thunderwolf cavalry and they're starting to lean away from that. So this detachment is only infantry and walker and terminator units, which is fine. We have some decent infantry and walker and terminator units, but the detachment rule is quite interesting. It's like you get to heroic for free if they're within 3 inches, which is
Mhm.
good. But it allows your opponent a lot of agency on whether or not they give you extra movement and damage. So it essentially puts your entire detachment rule in your opponent's hands, which I don't really
Right.
like.
Yeah, it's one of the ones where I find like a good player, your army rule is going to be almost useless against mid table and low table where people don't necessarily know how to play around it. It might do okay, but I never found that fighting other combat armies was really the thing I struggled with, which is really what this helps with. Like that was like shooting armies, getting through screens, stuff like that was what I found to be the biggest issue.
Yeah, absolutely. The enhancements, there's one that's amazing. The rest are very mediocre. The strats are really underwhelming. A lot of them are keyed off the Terminator unit, which Terminators in general are just not a really outstanding data sheet unless they're Deathwing Knights, which have like half -1 damage and 2 damage weapons with a bunch of attacks. So it really was an underwhelming detachment. I don't think I'm not even sure if I'm going to put it on a table.
Yep. The Wolf's Wisdom is the 30-point enhancement that increases the heroic range basically to 6 inches. That one's pretty solid. That one, if that enhancement with that ability was in another detachment with a better rule, that would be one of the better enhancements in the game. But
Absolutely.
with
Yeah.
but with that army rule not being that good, personally, in my opinion, and then like the Terminators are okay, but I found First Company, like I played around with the First Company list, took it to a
Right.
or tier two. I found if you want to run Terminators, First Company actually plays fairly well with the buff specifically for Terminators, but I just don't see this really doing it. Um, of all the
Yeah.
detachments, I think this is at best the fifth detachment we can take. I would say Champions Russ and Stormlance are probably the top two for the way most people play Wolves. And then
Yep.
Gladius has a
Yep.
place for certain versions of Wolves. And then if you really like the Terminator list, First Company can do okay. And then maybe you put it above Vanguard and Iron Storm or whatever the other ones are because they don't really
Yeah.
fit a Wolves playstyle.
It
But
doesn't quite.
and then like I still haven't got my head around Librarius yet either. I don't think that really works super great in Wolves because we have tons of great characters, but most of them aren't librarians. So if you're throwing them into squads instead of like Ulrich, Ragnar, Logan, Arjak, I really think like you're losing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This detachment, I think you're right. It's definitely down there, Champions of Fenris. It doesn't really have any significant damage buffs apart from one strat for lethal or sustained for a single unit for a single phase, locked to infantry.
Yeah, but
Um,
after playing anyone who's played Champions of Russ, that almost feels like a slap in the face. Like,
it
oh, I can get
totally
one
does.
of those things for one phase on one unit. Well, I can just
Yeah,
pick one and have it the whole game for the whole army, and normally within a turn or two have the second one unlocked for the whole
right.
army.
Yeah, and the movement buffs are non-existent. There's no advance in charge.
No,
If you take an enhancement on a Terminator unit, it can fall back and charge. That,
correct.
yeah, pretty horrible movement buffs. And then defensive buffs, there's one CP stealth for a unit for infantry.
Yeah,
You compare that to Stormlance, is like, or even the 6-up Feel Pain from Champs. Like, none of these strats hold a candle to either of those attachments.
Yeah, the up down is kind of cool and having you do that, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the up down is unique.
yeah, but then
Um,
we were heard some people talk about some of the chats. I haven't looked at it super in depth yet, but like the wording of it, a Terminator unit or squad or whatever it says within. There's Terminators, there's Assault Terminators, there's Wolfguard Terminators. Then when you take like Blood Claws from and give them a Terminator pack leader, they get the Terminator. So I'm not sure exactly. Do all of those get to do that? Which
so
ones
I've
get?
looked at this. Yeah, I've looked at this interaction. You can include a Wolfguard pack leader in Terminator armor and Blood Claws, Long Fangs, and Grey Hunters.
Mhm.
And it gives that unit the Terminator keyword. So they get the detachment rule of +1 OC for the whole unit, which is good. +1
Yep.
OC. They can't get any enhancement because the pack leader and Terminator armor cannot take enhancements. They can use one of the two Terminator stratagems. They can use Chilling Howl because this keys off of one Adeptus Astartes Terminator unit. So that the keywords are Adeptus Astartes Terminator unit. And it
Yep.
says within 6 inch, take a battle shock in your opponent's command phase. The other one for go back into reserve specifies
Onrushing Storm.
Adeptus Astartes Terminator Squad, which it is not the correct keyword.
Yeah, that was the thing I was wondering because we have Wolfguard Terminator Squad, we have Assault Terminator Squad, and then we have Terminator Squad. Is it only the
Right.
one that's just called Terminator Squad it works on? Does that work on Wolfguard
Oh, good
Terminator Squad
question. Yeah,
or
this should
Assault
work
Terminator
for
Squad?
both types of regular Terminators. I'm going to
I
double
would
check.
hope so. Otherwise, because they
I
don't.
know
Is Wolfguard Terminator Squad different than Terminator Squad? Like, does that like
Wolfguard
just
Terminators do not have the Terminator Squad keyword. I'm going
okay?
to look at Assault Terminators really quick and see. Um, wow, that's very disappointing. So
Yeah,
Wolfguard Terminators seemingly cannot use the strat. I'm going to look at the
yeah.
Terminator
I wonder if
Assault
that's
Squad.
something they'll FAQ because that seems like
Oh, so actually, the Terminator Assault Squad has the
yeah.
Terminator Assault Squad keyword. It does not have the Terminator Squad keyword. The
I
only
know. That's what I was
squad.
looking at. I was like, that seems
Wow.
like an
Oh,
oversight. I'm hoping they
yeah.
fix that because even that you have to take a generic Terminator Squad to use that up down strat.
Oh,
Which,
that's so
with this
disappointing.
being a specific space with detachment, I feel there's no way that was the intent. But
Totally, totally.
rules by the rule of the law, that's technically the way that works. So I'm hoping that's
Yeah, I
something they
mean,
address fairly quickly. Someone points out to them
yeah, I hope so. Because
because
that
that
means
was one of the
Wolfguard
things I'm
Terminators
like
can near
is
assault.
that that was one of the things I'm like, well, that is kind of cool. Logan with a Terminator squad and maybe a battle leader to give them lethals up down with 10 storm bolters that have lethals now and power fist with lethal. And then you pop the strat. Now they have lethal and sustained. Now they're almost the
Okay.
champions of Rush
Yeah,
Terminator squad. So that was one thing I thought might have some cool play in there.
absolutely would.
And then you could up down them and drop in just lethal a screen off the table and then disappear, pop over somewhere else, and then finally go
Yeah,
in later in the
yeah.
game.
It definitely boosts the ability of Terminator squads.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Storm Bolters are Storm Bolters. And
Yes.
yeah, so it's like, and sometimes the problem with this is you do at the end of your opponent's fight phase, you come down at the end of your movement phase, you got to try to bang a 9 inch charge. So
Yep.
it really is not reliable unless
Yeah.
you want to
That's
wait
what.
another turn with your whole squad off the board, then
Yeah.
rapid ingress and move up. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, but Daniel has to run it on stream for the Hobby Goblins coming up. So we've been, you were in the chat. So we were trying to find what we could shine out of that herd of a detachment to give him something to have some play.
well, well, what do you think shines in this detachment?
Well, as I say, that was one thing that could possibly work. Um, that's really about it. A Judicar with Blade Guard
Yes.
protecting maybe middle, protecting some shooting assets or something. They come in, you counter with him. He still gets fight first. That could
Yep.
have a play, but most people will probably play around that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the best case scenario is that the Judicar with Blade Guard has the 6 inch heroic, and
Yep.
then he is hiding behind a wall
Yep.
that is on an objective. So no matter what, if
Yep.
you touch the objective at any point, he can heroic and fight first and kill
Correct.
stuff. But at the end of the day, like Blade Guard, even with either sustain or lethals, are not that scary to some units. So
No.
some units like, Exalted 8-Bound will just charge in, lose one or two guys, and then
Oh
wipe
yeah.
the squad. So it's like,
Yeah.
is that
Well,
worth the
and
whole detachment?
yeah, and compared to some of the other detachments that dropped, like I've got a few games in against Star Shatter running Champions of Russ,
How'd that go?
and the Blade Guard just bounce if they hit the C-Tan. Half damage when they're flat, start with 2, and then he's got a 4-up invul and a 5-up field no pain. They just doesn't do it.
Yeah,
But
I've really had, yeah, Blade Guard has been,
that's making me, especially with the buff to Outriders and the way Thunderwolves work, making me lean back towards some of my Thunderwolf lists because they don't care about that half damage, and we're going to be seeing Necrons all over the place. They go in, do
yeah,
half damage, then do their +1, and I think they are going to be really good against Star Shatter.
yeah. So let's talk about some of the other
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
of the other changes, some of the other detachments, maybe even general changes of the game.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the outstanding changes that you saw coming to the game in December?
Uh, well, I don't know if it's outstanding, but it stands out. The armor contempt change is
Oh yeah,
huge for Wolves
hmm
and, well, just Marines in general. That's another thing you and I were talking about earlier. Is That's another thing that makes me lean back towards Stormlance a little bit, is because they still have the -1 to hit, -1 to wound strat that goes
amazing.
all the time. So
Yeah,
that really gives you a really good defensive strat that contempt kind of used to be. The first company, I believe, I'm trying to remember, I haven't run them in a while. I think they have a -1 damage strat for the Terminators, which used to be
right.
great teamed up with Armor of Contempt. But now you can pop that and you still get Armor of Contempt against one thing, because I used to love running the Captain. So he'd do one
Yeah,
for free and the others. So basically, 1 CP, you got -1 AP and -1 damage.
right, right.
So I think to get your defensives back, you got to lean back towards some of the other detachments. But Champions of Rust is still just so good because you still get all those buffs on your melee.
Amazing
Like
buffs.
I've been
Yeah,
doing fairly well with it.
yeah. I mean, that was a big change. Armor of Contempt.
The Outrider change really, I think, helps the Wolf Jail
The
start a
Outrider
nice
change
list.
is huge. I think they are just as good as Thunderwolf Cavalry, but you can run them in smaller squads. AKA,
Yeah,
they're just about as durable per point. They do about as much damage per point, but you can run them in smaller squads.
yeah,
And to me, that screams that like they're going to really um, synergize with Stormlance, and even with Champions of Rust. They love all
oh
of
yeah,
everything in Champions of Rust.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because you can get the devs on their shooting. The only thing I really find they lack a little bit is this: they don't get that invul, which
no
certain
invuln,
matchups really, really stands out for the Thunderwolves. And
totally.
then I think they're T5 instead of C6, or are they T6 too? I haven't run
They're
them in so long.
T5, yeah.
I find that T6 is such a break point.
Especially coupled with -1 to hit and wound, it is
Yeah,
ridiculously durable.
yeah.
At
And
that
are they
point, you're
3 or
looking at like las cannons or
yeah?
missile launchers, multi-meltas wounding on 4s, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And are they 3 or 4 wounds?
everything's 4 wounds. So the Thunderwolves and the
Yeah,
Bikes are four
that works
wounds.
perfect. Yeah, so that team's right in.
Yeah.
And then
So the Outrider
and
change was a huge change. I think that's going to be monumental for Marines,
yeah,
but also for Wolves.
and they can still flat 6 advance all the time.
No, they lost the flat six,
They
six
lost that.
advance,
Okay.
which is good because they would be so busted with the flat 6 advantage, +1 damage, +1 strength.
Well, I'm saying that in that with Stormlance, where you can auto advance one wolf unit. If all the Outriders got to do it automatically, that would have been great.
Yeah, I wish. But thankfully, GW is smart enough to delete the turbo boost rule before they added this +1 strength and damage.
Yeah,
However, in Stormlance, do you remember 2 CP flat advance 9? So they're moving 21 inches
yeah.
and then
Well, I was just
charging.
thinking it'd be nice to throw that on a wolf unit while all the Outriders had a natural one.
I know, I know. It's a shame you can't attach a captain to the Outriders because that would
Yeah,
be
dude,
1
yeah. We used,
CP.
dude. I got such a
Yeah.
cool bike captain back from when we used to be able to do that. Used to be able to take bike librarians.
Oh
Like
man,
that's
it's
some of
so
the
cool.
stuff I'd like to see him add back, even if not for Wolf, just White Scars. That stuff used to
Yeah,
be so cool for White Scars players. Cons on foot. Why is con on foot on for White Scars?
it doesn't
Like
make any
con should be
sense.
on a yeah. So hopefully, as they reintroduce some more stuff like that, they'll give them an Outrider con and stuff like that.
So I think
definitely.
Outriders was a big change. Reavers was a big change. We talk about
Yes.
Champions Rust being amazing. The change to Reavers is that they got +1 AP on their weapons, and they also got a -1 OC aura. And so they become a really critical part of a Champions with Rust list because
Yes.
you pair that with a cheap Phobos Lieutenant. They all have deep strike. They deep strike in, they shoot, they move D6, they charge. They have a bunch of attacks with sustained and lethal, and they have -1 OC. So they're almost guaranteed to flip an objective. And if your opponent leaves any gap near their home field, you're guaranteed to get Saga of Majesty. So your entire army is +1 OC.
Now here's the question: if you're playing against another Space Wolf player and they have Wolfen on the objective, and you make a -1 OC, do you get the objective?
Wolfen, yeah, if you survive, definitely. OC0 can only go to OC0, you know.
No, say if you turn it into -1 OC.
I don't even know how that would work because
It
it's
wouldn't. You
not a
can't.
minimum of 1, right? It goes to 0. So
No,
0
I'm just
can be
saying they're
1.
-1. That's it, but nothing goes below 0. I was just trying to
That's funny.
be
Uh,
smartass.
and then
Um,
also, interestingly enough, I think this is a sleeper change. The change to intercessors and heavy intercessors being actually a lot more ranged output.
yes.
Um, intercessors getting double the range attacks, they have assault on their weapons. Heavy intercessors getting double the damage, they have assault on their weapons. I think they can be secretly an important part of any Space Marine list, but also
Oh,
Space
yeah.
Wolves.
Yeah, and then the 6-inch deep strike instead of 3-inch.
Huge change. I love that. I hate 3-inch deep strike. I think that was a
Yeah.
big mistake in 10th edition.
Yeah, I was
So I'm
always
happy they changed
ran.
it to 6.
I was huge on infiltrators. I think I'll take one unit, but I don't think they're 100% as necessary because it's a
Right.
lot easier to bubble out 6 inches with some intercessors or something in your backfield than it was the 3-inch.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah, I think you're right. If you really want to, you can screen 6 without an infiltrators, but it's really difficult. Infiltrators, you just set it and forget it. You know, you put it down and they're gone. There isn't really much indirect in the game, so if you put those guys down, they're really likely to just stay on your
oh yeah,
home the whole game.
oh yeah. In most games, unless that it's one of the ones where the home field doesn't count for anything, I place them turn one, maybe shuffle them a little my first movement phase, and they pretty much don't move the rest of the game unless I'm getting crushed and someone comes over there and messes with them. But yeah,
Exactly. Set
normally
and
the
forget it.
infiltrators just stand there all game.
Yeah. What else? We had some points adjustments. Scouts went up 5 points. Wolf Scouts went up five
Yeah, they
points.
gave them all the combat knives +1 AP, and then they all went up 5 points.
Yeah, Wolfen went up 5 points per 5, which is fine. They're still an incredibly efficient data sheet for what they do.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then the detachments, man, there was a lot of detachments.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think the Star Shatter was really good. What else was it? There was another one I was saying was really really good.
Gray
There was
Knights
so
was
many.
amazing.
Oh,
Uppy
Gray
down.
Knights. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
Big Dave, one
everyone
of my
hits.
best friends, dude. He is on that purifier train. He has been crushing stuff. He's like he's doing so much damage.
Oh
I'm like,
man, that's gonna hurt.
oh yeah.
I think the Orcs Brigade. Oh, the Orcs changed to be able to call
Oh
the wall
yeah.
whenever, and the Orcs Brigade sounds really powerful.
Well, and people sleep on shooting orcs. Like my friend Chris Winans runs shooting orcs for years. That was it +1 to hit or whatever.
Yep, and
When you're
reroll
hitting on
hits.
5s and 6s to start with, the output change for orcs is like crazy. It's not like you're hitting on 4s going to 3, hitting on 3s. Like that change is so huge.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think there's going to be more shooting or melee? I mean, like, what melee detachments came into the game that you think are really viable? I think World Leaders is actually really viable as a melee detachment.
Oh, I like the word. That's the other army I own. So I'll probably play around with that because that looked really, really cool.
It looks so
Um,
fun. I wish we got that detachment, but
yeah,
anyway.
the Corn Demon one, the Blood Legion, where they got that blood surge if you move near them, that one seems to have some play.
That one looks pretty solid.
Because you park that on an objective, they move near you. If you roll high enough on your blood surge, now you're not getting shot. That's not after the shooting phase like ours is. That is like pre your damage. Like you can't move on these
Yeah.
objectives early games, or they're going to be getting on you.
I think the Tau one is secretly pretty good. It's got a bunch of tricks in it,
Yeah.
and a good
Well,
amount
yeah, I
of
was just talking
damage
about the
buffs.
combat one. Yeah, the Tau one, Star Shadow, Grey Knights. Um, Yeah, I think we got more good shooting detachments than we did combat detachments.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think it was already kind of most of the time leading kind of shooty.
Yeah. Top
To
armies.
balance it out some, like people that play on like player placed or some of those other stuff, like really it's hard to play combat armies in those formats.
It
So I
is.
think it might even skew a little more shooting for a minute, just because I think we're going to see Star Shatter everywhere. The couple games I got into it, it is annoying. Like I had a
Star
friend playing it.
Shatter.
He's been out
Yep.
of the game for almost a year, and he was playing it wrong and not remember to use strats, and still just almost walking through us. And like, oh man, once I learned how to play this detachment, we're like, shut up. We're just bouncing off you, and all your Doomsday Arcs are assault moving and then shooting us and can't hide. Like
Oh, it's awful.
with the Silent King getting all the buffs and then handing out all the buffs,
Yeah. I mean, you think
that's
about
probably,
that.
I think that's going to be the first one I think that's going to get hit when stuff comes out. Necron's going to get some points increases from that. But for the next little bit until they do, that is something you're going to have to plan on seeing at almost every event.
Yeah, it's got me leaning because I think it's going to be a little more shooting heavy, and it's got me leaning more towards Stormlance.
Yep,
I
I
played a
agree.
lot of Champions of Rust recently, and I had a lot of fun with that. Um, what I found is that Stormlance has a little bit less damage, but it has a little more consistency, is what
Yes.
I've found,
Yeah. Yeah. So
especially in
I'm gonna
shooting.
yeah, I think I'm gonna start playing around again with my 18 Thunderwolf characters, throwing in some Outriders now. I'll play around with Champions of Rust and Stormlance versions of it, just because the having advanced charge all the time is nice, but also having those other buffs is nice, and see where I settle on that. Like the list won't change much, but which one of those detachments will be I settle on will really be something I'm interested to see.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very curious about it. So, yeah, let's talk about what is the future of the Wolves.
Champions of Fenris, baby. I mean, oh no,
Champions of Fenris.
no. I think not a lot changes for us from what we've been doing. I don't think Champions
Hmm,
of Fenris will be seen a lot or do well when it is. Librarius Conclave, I don't think fits Wolves as well as it does other chapters, just because Ragnar, Ulrich, Logan, like the characters we can put in these units that benefit from all the wolf buffs are just not librarians. So taking them out and putting in librarians, I think what you gain from that detachment and what you lose from those characters at best balances out, but then you lose all the other detachment rules because you're just getting back to equal with these detachment rules. So I don't really see
right.
think you're gonna see much librarians conclave with wolves. I think champions Rust or Stormlance are still 1 and 2 for wolves, just depending on your play style. Gladius is still good for any marine army. And
Yep.
then if you really, really want to run a Terminator army, First Company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you run
Unfortunately.
an all dreadnought vehicle list, you can play with some of the other ones. But I think honestly, that's even better in Champions of Rust or something to start with the 6 up. Feel no pain.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Champions Rust is still a very well rounded attachment. I put it a little
Hmm.
bit above Gladius for us.
Oh
Um,
yes, absolutely.
and yeah, I think the biggest change, yeah, the lifts didn't change much for Wolves, I
No,
don't think.
no,
Uh,
yeah, because Champions of Rust has Black Death, and that on the right character makes it so easy to have 2 sagas up by the end of turn 2 most of the time.
exactly. And the damage you can create with sustain and lethals, and you have Logan for full rerolls to hit on a one turn.
Oh,
You
dude, yeah,
can
if you have
hunt
both
it.
those up on the Logan go turn, it is
Oh
so
man,
much fun. Especially when you play someone who
incredible.
hasn't faced wolves before. Just you're like, all right, I got like 24 attacks and I hit 30 times and I wound you lades. They're like, what just happened?
Yeah,
Especially I've
it's
been running that
insane.
Ulrich Wolfguard brick, hitting on twos because they're being led by a character with full rerolls, 40 attacks, sustained, lethal, and then you give them the +1 to wound, -1 AP, so they're strength 5, -2, +1 to wound. Like that goes through so much stuff.
It really
-1
does.
damage, half damage, none of that cares because they start at 1 wound, just overwhelm them with number of attacks.
Yeah,
Full,
I
and he
think
gives them
it's really
full
great.
reroll to wound against monsters, vehicles, and characters, and full reroll to hit. So he doesn't even need Logan's go turn or armor or oath of the moment. That unit just goes in and does what it does.
It goes in and hurts people, man. I really think Outriders do a lot of damage, especially in Champions of Rust, because you think about this. They have grenades, so if you move 12, you can shoot a grenade. The
Yep.
chaplain buffs the unit, and the unit buffs the chaplain, so it makes it so much better.
Yep.
They have, if you're just taking the 6 bikes and the chaplain, they've got 14 twin linked dev wound guns shooting, and then they have 24 strength 5 AP1 2 damage with sustained, potentially lethal, +1 AP, +1 to wound. And then they have 5 3 damage attacks with +1 to wound, potentially +1 AP.
Oh yeah.
And that's 235 though, and they are 24 wounds at T5 with a 3 up,
Yep.
potentially 6 up.
Yeah,
I
the list I'm thinking about running, I even give him the ATV for extra wounds, and then
extra
he's got a
wounds,
little
man.
bolter, and I give him the Gatling, so you're just putting out dev wounds out of that unit.
A huge amount of dev wounds, and you think about how cheap that unit is. It's 235. That's cheaper than Ulrich's unit. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
and Ulrich's unit was already cheap to begin with.
Yeah, I played
So it
around with
just
them
is
before, and the dev wounds was cute, but just they bounced when it came to combat. But now that they're +1
right.
strength, +1 damage, like now you get the combat out of them on top of it. Like yeah,
Yeah, they don't even need buffs half the time. They just need rerolls to hit, which you can get in spades. So because they already have a
oh
plus
yeah,
one wound, you usually don't spend the lance on them.
no,
I played around. I just ran a game with them with in Champions of Rust, and I had 3 by 6 of them with chaplains, and I was really liking that. And I had a lot rest of the list to play with. I mean,
oh yeah,
that's only like 700 points on the list. You know what I mean?
yeah. Because
Like
yeah,
it
I was
was so
been
cheap.
playing around with chaplains. Like I was running big JPI with a jump chaplain. I was running instead of a Judicar because I play more aggressive. I was running a chaplain with the blade guard, so they come in with the +1 to wound already up.
Yeah. Blade Guard
Which
are only Blade Guard are good, but with Champions of Rust, Blade Guard can be amazing.
was that's why I liked it with the chaplain. They come in with sustained, lethal, and +1 to wound on Logan's go turn. Like, and if
And
you
like a
most
tuck.
stuff, most good stuff has invols, but if they don't have an invol, you can pop the strat to take them up to AP3.
Yeah. It's pretty
Like,
amazing. They hit like a truck, man.
yeah. Although the
Yeah.
Judicar version is still pretty cool too. If you play a little more counter punch, then the
Yeah.
Judicar is still awesome in with them because
Fights
you can still
first
just
and
use the
whatnot.
strat to get +1 wound. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest change is the Outrider change for Space Wolves. I think you'll see a lot more Outriders in lists. I'm already building and painting up a
Oh,
good
yeah. They,
amount of
they
them.
team up so well with the Thunderwolves. Like
They
when I
do.
saw
They
that rule, that
really.
was my first thought. Was like I've been playing around with these all infantry and vehicles, like no Thunderwolves for like the last couple months, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try this out. Outriders with Thunderwolves just seems like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It is, and actually, so yeah, I mean, that's the list I'm building up. Is the Stormlands with Outriders? I think that's going to be
Yeah,
an amazing list.
I might
Um,
try it in Champions to Rust first, but I know I have Stormlands in the back of my mind to fall back if it just feels like I need
yeah.
the advance and charge on everything all the time.
Ooh. My opponent, I was playing GSC. My opponent put his entire army in front of me. On the first turn, I had 3 Outrider
Yep,
squads. It was like a Gene Stealer brick, an Aberrant brick, and an Acolyte brick, and
yep.
they were gone with plenty of
Oh yeah.
attacks to spare. It was not
Well,
pretty.
especially with how hard it is to deploy the Thunderwolves when you run max, add in the Outriders, like Stormlight, you almost need Hunter's Instinct just to bring that one in turn one, just to have the
Right.
room.
Yeah. So here's the thing I think with Outriders is they do a lot more damage in champions. They don't need to, but the difficult part is getting them there. And I think there are 3 really important things with Stormlance that is great for Outriders. Hunter's Instincts you talked about. Like you can't deploy 21 bike bases and expect none of them to get shot. Um, so putting one in reserve on coming out on turn 1 is really great. Second is -1 hidden wound. I think is almost necessary because sometimes you're 18 inches away and you roll a 1 on the advance and you fail a charge and you're like, oh shit, okay. Um, the -1 hidden wound I think makes that Riders really great. And then finally is the auto advance 9, so you can close the gap 21 inches immediately, get a really
Yes.
good charge, move block, and then like just sit there, and tank a lot of damage for really cheap.
Well, that was the one thing I was really liking about them teamed with the wolves is in regular wolf jail you had to send a wolf unit out real early to try to. Now you can throw out a cheaper unit that if
Yeah,
it gets there can do just as much damage to start the jail. Now they got to start digging through outriders before they get hit by the wolves.
I think that's actually going to be a really great thing
Yeah,
because the wolf units, you send them out there, yeah, they do a lot of
yeah,
damage. They're not necessarily hitting the right targets yet because they're going to hit the screens. And you're
yeah,
sending out like 400-point units. If your
yeah.
opponent knows how to deal with them by AKA charging them
Oh yeah,
or standing outside of 9 inches and shooting the heck out of them,
yeah.
like that's a big unit.
Well, that's the nice thing about the bikes too is you send the bikes out. Now, all right. Not only am I charging your screens, I can shoot them.
Exactly. Shooting the screen. Yeah, the it's cannot be understated how important those 14 shots plus a grenade potentially. I mean, you can't advance in grenade, but those
Yeah,
14 shots could be clear another screen, charge
yeah.
something else. Clear a
Because
screen
Stormlights, that
24 inches
gives us
away.
advance and shoot too, or just advance and charge?
So in champions,
No, in
if you are
Stormlights.
in Stormlance, you always get advance and charge, fall back and charge. There's a stratagem for assault, which is really
Okay.
amazing.
So yes, that's how you'll have to spend the CP, but yeah, be able to come out, just put all those shots, hopefully clear or mostly clear one screen, and then charge enough. And honestly, you could probably charge two little screens with that unit. It's so big,
Exactly. Exactly. So
and
I'm
then the
really up on
wolves and
Outriders.
then the wolves just position themselves.
Yeah, and the Wolves are really great. The big difference, the two big differences between the Outriders and the Wolves is that the Outriders don't have a Fort Bimble and they don't have Blood Surge.
Yep.
Um, Blood Surge keeps the Wolves alive in a lot of shooting matchups.
Oh
Even
yes,
with the -1 hidden wound, people will put the amount of volume through to just take down units. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So that Blood Surge will keep that unit alive,
Oh, I
which is
agree.
fine.
That blood surge is key in the Stormlands jail.
Um, I'm really up on Outriders. I'm excited. I like the model. Some people don't. I don't know how you feel about them.
All right, so we got a question here from the chat. What do you think about a lieutenant and Phobos with Wolf's Wisdom and Reavers to rapid ingress near an objective, shoot and fade into the 6 inches out of turn charge to snipe an objective?
Interesting. So Wolves Wisdom is a 6 inch consolidate,
That's yes.
six
There's a
inch
6 inch
heroic.
heroic. Yeah. Yep.
Um, Rapid ingress near an objective, so you'd be able to move, shoot. So it's 6 + D6, getting it into an objective, and
Yep.
then out of turn charge 6. I mean, it's pretty solid. The
Yeah.
thing is, the Reavers, the Phobos Lieutenant doesn't get the D6 movement on anything but his shooting phase. So yeah, you could rapid ingress them. The -1 OC could be really good. I mean, there's some plays there, but I think. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because he's saying rapid ingress near objective, then shoot and fade into the 6 inch out of turn. So yeah, so I don't think he can do that off Overwatch. So you wouldn't be sniping the objective. You'd be able to move, and then shoot and move on your turn onto it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the big thing is you could have a really big aura of -1 OC. It's like if they move at all within 6 of them, you could heroic 6 and have a -1 OC aura. The the problem is that they're still marine bodies, so
Yeah,
your opponent sometimes will just be like, "I'm just going to charge your marine bodies anyway and
yeah,
kill them," and then you're like, "Okay, well yeah, it's." I mean, it could be useful in some situations, but I think Reavers by themselves with a Phobos Lieutenant just do the job anyway. They don't even need rapid ingress. Again, like deep
yeah,
strike, shoot D6, and then charge 2D6, and then steal an
yeah.
objective.
Yeah, he was looking up the lieutenant now, see what his exactly ability wording is.
Yeah.
In your shooting phase, after yeah, so it has to specifically be in your shooting phase. So yeah, so you can't rapid ingress like Overwatch and move on to this shoot and fade onto
Yeah.
the objective.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, 135, which is a Reavers and a Phobos Lieutenant,
Yep.
to guarantee take an objective if you're at all able to deep strike near it is
Yeah.
actually a very solid thing in any detachment.
Yeah. But yeah, anything with Wolf's Wisdom that you could get near an objective and possibly pull that off in their combat phase. Although you have to be 9 inches away from them. You do it after they move. So yeah, so you're not gonna be able to pop the 6-inch charge thing. So yeah, I don't think that quite works.
Yeah, if you could, yeah, I think if you could rapid
Now,
ingress,
if you
yeah,
put it on like a unit that like deep struck in near something your opponent was about to charge, and then they charge, and now you're in the 6-inch range, that might have a play. Um,
seriously could.
and
Yeah,
Reavers, depending on what they're sending in, if they're charging you with something, hope it's normally something that can do decent damage. And Reavers going second would probably get wrecked by it unless whatever else they were charging was more important. So I don't know, like doing that with like a Terminator squad or something might be cool.
could be really cool. I think that could be really powerful. Deep strike a Terminator unit in your opponent's turn. They were going to charge in, but they didn't realize that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but the thing is, the 6-inch, you can heroic anyway
Yeah,
because they're ending a charge move. So the detachment really wouldn't
that's
matter.
true. That only I guess you could spend 30 points and save the CP and maybe possibly heroic in another spot. Deep strike 2 squads in like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Heroic
definitely.
one, free on the other. So there's some situations I think would be very niche where that's better than just having heroic intervention. Um,
Yeah, I agree. One change that I wanted to mention, I think, is actually pretty interesting, is that intercessors. We talked about it, intercessors going up in range damage. I think
yes.
now are really amazing skirmish pieces for 80 points. They stick to your home field. They run up. They shoot 20 shots. They hit 15
Hmm.
times and 3 power fists. You can attach Ragnar to them. Shooting nice and
Yep.
charge. Like, I mean, it's a pretty solid, like 80 points gets you really solid range output and okay combat and good OC. Like,
Yep.
it's a pretty good skirmish.
Yeah, them like almost take them and infiltrators in like a Stormlance. You have the infiltrators, you run up sticky it with the intercessors. So now even if they somehow shoot the intercessors off, they still got to get through the jail, and you just have objective in the middle that's popping for you every turn.
I really like that. I've also seen, I mean, I've seen people play around with Inquisitor Draxus in a big
Yeah,
intercessor unit, which I think is interesting because she makes them unshootable outside of 18. And now you have a shooting threat. If you take a 10 man, you're shooting 40 shots plus 2 grenade launchers plus Draxus, which is 10 2 damage shots.
yeah.
That you're not shootable. And I think even another interesting combo is heavy intercessors. 10 man heavy intercessor. It's expensive. It's like 320 with Draxus, but they actually have pretty decent range output. I mean, they shoot like 22 2 damage shots.
Well, T6 3 rooms. Like I keep wanting to put them in a list, but just they don't quite fit what I'm doing with my list most of the time. But there are lists where I think they'd just be amazing.
I really want to try them out, especially with Draxus, because I think they do a
Yeah.
lot more than just the range damage.
Hmm.
They hold your expansion really well. If someone wants to get with an 18, first of all, they're not going to kill them unless they put everything with an 18.
Yeah.
Second of all, if they put everything with an 18 or whatever with an 18 is going to get charged
Yeah.
and killed. Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited about some of the Space Marine changes
Oh yeah.
that were
Yeah. I
made.
think Wolves are in a good place. We have some. I just don't think
Yep.
Champions of Fenris helps it out at all. I think
No.
Champions of Russ is really good. Stormlance is really good. There's good
Yep.
Gladius builds. Uh, I still think there's some good first company builds, although I do think they're a step below some of the other builds. But I think you could do
Yep.
all right with an Terminator list in first company with some of the buffs you get there. Um,
Yeah. I know there's some
yeah,
Terminator diehards. Are you a Terminator diehard?
I'm not a Terminator. I do love Terminators, especially Space Wolf ones. You got the cloaks. Space Wolf Terminators are the
Oh,
coolest looking.
so
So
cool.
like, yeah, like so I do love running them when they're good, but I'm not like if they're bad, I have to make them work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Thunderwolves, I can run Thunderwolves. I can run Blade Gird. I just need to be good in combat. I don't care what it is. As
That's
long as it
exactly
looks
right.
wolf, as long as it looks wolfy and it kills stuff, I can adapt to running anything.
Honestly, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm really happy with Space Wolves, even though we didn't necessarily get seemingly a lot. I think they're in a really good place. I agree.
Well, yeah, I thought we were in a good place before. That's why I was like, if this detachment sucks, it's not like we were in the position where we were before they fixed Champions of Russ.
Yes.
If Champions
Yeah.
of Russ was still the way it used to be, and then they gave us this detachment,
Be really
then
disappointed.
I'd be really bad. But Champions of Russ, I think, is one of the better detachments out there.
It totally is. I mean, it takes every single unit. People say Liberator Assault Group is the best melee Space Marine detachment, and I kind of think Champions of Rust is
Hmm.
almost pretty much tied. You know,
Yeah.
giving your entire army lethal and sustain pretty easily,
Oh yeah.
with forward rolls on your go turn, I think is arguably better
Well, the
than
nice thing I like about Champions of Rust is it's not like other detachments where you're like, all right, I got to bring vehicles and walkers, I got to bring mounted, I got to bring infantry. Bring whatever you want. This detachment buffs it.
exactly. Even the 6-up Feel of Pain is amazing on the
Oh
entire
yeah.
army.
Just say if you want to run like a dreadnought vehicle heavy list, just give them 6-ups all. Have a couple Iron Priests healing them. Come kill this. Try to.
Yeah. Another thing I want to mention with Champions of Rust is that it essentially gives your entire army that is a character units plus one OC,
Hmm.
which is a kind of a secretly really good thing about the detachments. Say if you have a 6-man Blade Guard with Ragnar and you stand the objective in another detachment, there's 7 OC. Your opponent's going to put 8 OC on the point and then say, okay, you can't hold that. Now in Champions of Rust, they have to put 15 OC on the point, 14 OC on the point to hold that. So your opponent's probably not going to put a 5-man intercessor squad on there or a
Yep.
10-man just cheap whatever. The threat of the plus OC in your command phase essentially gives you plus 1 OC in your to hold things with. So I think that is one of the really secret strengths of Champions
All
is
right.
that
One of
it
the
gives a lot
funniest
of your
things.
units.
Yeah, one of the funniest things I like doing with that is like Murderfang goes over and clears something out, and you're like, oh, he's 0 OC. Psych. I'm going to control this objective.
Oh, it's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh man, and Murder Fang with a 6-inch consolidate. Oh,
No. No.
so
Yeah.
sick.
The 6-inch consolidate sustained lethal on Logan's go turn. Dude, at Nova, I picked up over 700 points of Tyranids in one turn with Murderfang.
I I've run Murder Fang in a handful of games. I have yet to master that guy. He is I feel like his skill ceiling is infinite. Like if you are
Yep.
really good and you know when to bring him in, where to go with him, like
Yep.
you could just ping pong.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to rapid ingress. Like that's the only way he really, really works. And then yeah, and and that was when I was running my dreadnought list. But in Wolf Jail, he's amazing. If you can fit him in a Wolf Jail list, because you're pinning them back, so their stuff is close to it. Like you don't let them spread out, so it's like he has the whole sort. Only problem is you got to run Champion to Rust to give him the 6-inch.
Right. Yeah.
So, but
It's
even his
anyway. Yeah,
Warmines, even
I'm
with
really
the
excited.
3-inch, he's like, and just the fear of him. People that know what he does, now they're trying to spread everything out. Like,
I remember I played you with him, and I was scared of that guy. That guy
oh
could
yeah,
have ran through like my entire flank.
oh yeah, yeah, he's fun. But he also sometimes whiff off the first thing and then just he dies easy. Like
He does. He does.
yeah. He's good at killing like non-combat vehicles, little squads, like stuff like cleaning up a flank. But like you don't want to get him into like a Primarch or like a CT, anything that's itself good in combat and lots of wounds. He'll do some damage to it, but then he'll die. Like you need to get
Immediately.
him into stuff that like big monsters that shoot, so he can hit them. They hit him, and then he can fight the second time. That's how we normally finish them off. If they can finish him in one activation, that's not really the thing you want to get him into. So in certain
Right.
matchups, you have to be real careful with him.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. Um, he's fun. Man, we have some of the best characters in the game. Like the
Oh,
suite of
absolutely.
Space Wolf characters is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Bjorn, Logan, Ragnar. That's the problem I find is I'm taking all these named characters and I'm like shit. Where do I put these enhancements? So you got to try to stick in a captain here, or a chaplain there, or Judicar there, just to take the enhancements. And you're like, I want all the named guys.
All the name guys are great. Even the non-name guys, Battle Leaders, Wolf Lords, Iron
Oh yeah,
Priest is sneakily really good because that dude has a lot of 3 damage attacks. Um,
yes.
yeah, there's just a lot of Murder Fang. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great characters there. And
Oh
the
yeah, my
problem I
dreadnought
find
list,
is,
the Iron
yeah,
Fring Priest and Tech
uh,
Marine, just getting the loan op, so they're just sitting there healing the dreads and like, all right, here's my what's it called? Recover assets. Here's my just doing your little actions because people can't shoot them. And if you come try to charge them, well, now you're in range of all the Redemptors and Brutalis and Bjorn and Murderfang, and it's like
you're getting
those
dogpiled.
guys, those guys would just score all sorts of points.
Totally. Yeah, you're getting dogpiled.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find I want to include so many characters that I don't have anything else on the list.
Well, that's the problem I
It's
find
like
is there's so much good stuff in Wolves now. Like I can't take it all. I've run out of points.
exactly, which is a good problem to have.
Oh yeah,
I think there's a lot of different builds you can build in Wolves. Wolf
yeah,
Jail, you can build dread spam, you can build infantry spam, you can
yeah.
build yeah, I mean there's a lot of good stuff.
All right, so we got another question here in chat. I'm starting a 1,000-point Crusade army. Was hoping to run this new Champion of Fenris detachment. What would you recommend running? In Crusade, you can use enhancements from other detachments.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would recommend would be change that Fenris to Russ, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of this detachment. So really, anything you take in this detachment would be better in another detachment. But if you're set on running Fenris, uh, Terminators and Walkers are the things that get the most buffs from it. And then if you're taking detachment enhancements from other detachments, Black Death is one of the best enhancements in the game.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. Pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, James, I would say that again, if you're not set on the detachment, Champions of Rust is better, but it's also a lot more fun. Like you get to get
yeah.
collect trophies and get your army better over the course of the game, depending on how cool your characters do, like cool things that they
Dude,
do.
you know what's really? If he can take enhancements from other detachments, he can run Champions of Russ and take the Wolves' Wisdom.
That would be amazing.
Dude, that would be a beauty. Like a
That would be pretty
Judicar with
amazing.
Blade Guard with Wolves' Wisdom in the Champions of Rust with all the buffs. Now that would be fun. Now I want to play Crusade just to do that to somebody.
That could be really cool. But
So,
if
dude,
you
so
are
you do
set
that,
on,
and then you pop the 6-inch consolidate on top of it.
oh man, you're flying across the board. You're fighting
Yeah,
everything.
but
But again,
yeah,
if you
but if
are
you're
set on
gonna run
champions,
Fenris, Terminators, Walkers, maybe one Blade Guard squad with the Judicar for that enhancement would be the way I would start.
totally, yeah. Maybe some combat walkers, maybe like a Redemptor or a Brutalis
Yeah,
would be good,
yeah. Redemptors are my favorite walkers because they shoot good and they combat good.
and they're pretty durable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, the -1 damage it really helps on them.
yeah.
Yeah, you remember that in our game. You played against my Dreadnought spam list.
Oh man, I had hundreds of points of wolves charge, 1,000 points of wolves charging your front line, doing nothing, and then I
Yeah,
had units of Hellblaster shooting with 2 damage, doing nothing. I was like, what
yeah,
is happening?
yeah. Because as much as I love the +1 damage on wolves for getting around half damage, -1 damage still tanks them. Deathwing
Oh,
Knights,
it's
Redemptors, Bullgrin. At least Bullgrin went up in points, so you don't see the 3 squads of Bullgrin anymore. But that gave me problems in guard. Is Thunderwolves, which is bounce off -1 damage units.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, there's less of them in the game.
Yeah,
Um,
and Deathwing Knights are such small units. Normally, you can just Thunderwolves get so many attacks. You can normally dig
run
your way
over them
through
anyway.
it.
You kill like
Yeah,
3, and then,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to set on Fenris, I would throw in Black Death somewhere from the other detachment, and then Terminators and Walkers.
Yeah. Totally.
All right, here, let's see. We got to follow up. I'm going to be up against Eldar. Scary shooting. Maybe I'll go for Champions of Rust. Then I was a bit disappointed with this new detachment. Yeah, we're all disappointed with this new detachment. We were all waking up this morning hoping for something cool that we could start building lists for, and nothing about it made me want to build a list for it.
Nope. Totally disappointed. You're right. So excited. I woke up early today. I was checking my phone every 10 minutes,
Yeah,
and then, like, oh man, this sucks.
yeah.
Such a bummer. Um,
But but I still think Wolves are in a good spot. We've got lots of good units. A bunch of detachments are still really good for us. If you want to run a Wolf specific detachment, Champions of Rust is still amazing. If you're somebody that doesn't mind running a non-specific Wolf detachment, Stormlance is still awesome.
yep.
I know some of the guys in our chat give us crap when we run Stormlance instead of Rust because it's not a Space Wolf detachment, but
Yeah, yeah, and it's just been the meta for a long time. So I feel like people are starting to get over it.
yeah,
Thunderwolf Cav got a big hit in the data slate a couple months ago, so people are
yeah,
starting to get a little tired of it. But I think it is still
Oh yeah.
toe and toe, neck and neck with Champions of Russ.
Well, especially in teams, I think Thunderwolf Jail is Stormlight Thunderwolf is amazing in teams.
Right. Yeah. I
Champions of
mean,
Rust can be too, but it just fills a different role. Thunderwolf Jail has a specific role. Champions of Rust can be more of an all-comer list, just depending on
yep.
what your team needs.
Yeah. Stormlance is explicitly really amazing into shooting, I would
Yes.
say. And I think you're going to see more shooting. The one thing I was disappointed with is that the Necrons got really amazing shooting attachments, and they have a 4 damage gun, ignore mods, and rerolls. And I was like, damn, that's exactly the worst thing. They got the
That's
DDAs and the Silent King just
that was
shooting
one of the
fire and
reasons I was
shot.
thinking about Champions of Rust is that 6-up Feel No Pain. Hopefully those DDAs aren't one-shot in wolves. You just roll that 1-6. All right, at least he's eating the second one.
Exactly, exactly. But
But yeah, I
there
still
are
think
ways
Stormlight
around
is
that.
better overall. You can't just take it for the Wolf Jail. I think Stormlight is better. You can't take it just for that one matchup. Although I do think in that one specific matchup, I think I'd almost rather be in Russ.
I think I kind of agree. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited to try both out. I mean, there's still a lot of build diversity. I find myself building lists on huge ends of the spectrum every
Oh
day,
yeah,
which is a good and a bad thing. I'm like, damn, what am I going to run in this next
oh yeah.
tournament?
So
I
that
don't
was
know.
yeah. Yeah, Wolves are so good right now. Like, I could build Stormlance, I could build Champions of Rust, like First Company. If like, there's so many lists that when I'm in my office doing my business, I just sit there build lists on my phone and like I'm never gonna be able to run this because I got this other list I like and I need to test it. Like, but yeah, I'm constantly building lists. There's like so many I want to run, but it's like you got to run one multiple events to really test it out. Like you can't run
Totally.
at one event, you get lucky, get a bunch of matchups, start telling me how amazing it is, and then you jump to something else and someone else tries it and hits the bad matchup. So like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, man. It's a blessing and a
Yeah,
curse. Sometimes I envy World
absolutely.
Eaters players because they only have one single build and they just have to put it on the table and play it.
Well,
You know what I
there's
mean?
some versions I've seen. Like there's the Terminator spam that we took to 8 man. There's all eight
Okay.
bound. There's the 3 Berserker squads with MOEs with some like Forge Fiend stuff behind it that I fought at ATC last year. Um, But yeah, the 8 bound build is like the main one, but there is some little variation, but it all does the same thing. Just runs across the board at you and hits you really
And
hard.
punches you. Yeah, pretty much.
But with the new detachment, I think it's going to do that even better than it did before. So
I'm very curious. Yeah, this new attachment seems to be a little better against shooting because it got the blood surge, got the -1 to wound and shooting,
yeah,
a little worse in melee. So yeah,
yeah. I think I might break my World Leaders out for a month or so, just because without this new detachment being good, there's not a lot I want to really play test. Everything else I've kind of play tested a bunch. Like if this was new, I was going to be all in play testing this, but I'm like, I kind of know what other stuff does. Like when we get back toward the next team event, I'll probably slide back into a Stormlance just because I like that in teams. But I think
yeah, man.
my next event or two, I might play around with the World Leaders.
I totally agree. I'm still gonna be iterating on some champs and some Stormlance. Probably Stormlance. I'm leaning more that way.
Yep. All right.
But
So
I'm
we got
excited
another
for it either way.
comment here from the Hogfather. I think we got played as Wolf players. I was hoping for a better detachment for Walkers. Yeah, we have some of the best Walkers in the game. Like I did a
Yep.
video that our Dreadnought characters and stuff are like amazing, and then Redemptors, Brutalis, all that's good in Wolves. So it would have been nice to see a detachment specifically that for Wolves that specifically did something for the Walkers. I still think you can build a good Dreadnought list in Champions of Russ or possibly Gladius with the Space Wolves. I took one to Nova that I did halfway decent with, but it does have some matchups it just isn't great into, but it can be still be really hard for certain things to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Walkers are great. I mean, I love them. What matchups did you find was difficult? Shooting?
Uh, well, some shooting I had trouble into the Grey Knights with their armor contempt strat, although that got fixed now too.
Oh,
But
good.
all the Dreadnoughts being neg 2 on their combat, the Dread Knights pop that, so now all of a sudden they got 3 ups. Like I just couldn't, and then shooting them if they have cover. All of them are 2 up armor to start with. So 2 up armors with armor contempt, I found just the AP lacking a little in,
Hmm.
but that was only the real, and then just I had a little difficulty in a Geostealer cult game because they kept coming back just because my army was so elite because it was pretty much all walkers that he just had more crap than me.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think the comment is is echoing what we're all feeling. We're all just pretty disappointed with this detachment.
Oh
But
yeah, absolutely.
like you said,
But
we're in a
we
pretty good
still have
spot.
good options. We still have good options. Yeah, Wolves are
Totally.
not trash like they were a while ago. They're like over the last, there's been a while when the Wolves were like almost unplayable.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah. But all right, well, we're coming up on almost an hour. Anything else you felt we didn't cover or you want to get into?
No, big changes to the game. I have no idea who's going to come out on top. I'm really eager to see.
Yep.
I think I'm going to lean more into Warhammer next year. I'm going to go to a lot more events. So I'm really looking forward to gearing up for the competitive season this year.
Yes.
How
Yeah. No.
about
Yeah.
you?
A
You
lot
got
of
any plans?
places. No. Just try to keep making videos for the Wolves players and go to the monthly RTTs around me and try to make it to a few events. Definitely want to try to do more team events. I love team events.
Oh
They're
yeah.
my favorite way to play 40K right now, unless there's another Space Marine player on my team and they try to make me play something else. But as long as I can bring Wolves, I love team events.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, because the last big one I went to, they almost made me play World Eaters because the one guy wanted to play Blood Angels. But when the points dropped for Blood Angels, he wasn't happy with the points, so he switched back to what he was going to run. And so I got to go back to running my Wolves. But yeah, I'm just playing and enjoying the game. That's the plans coming up. And I'm trying to do videos more consistently, do some of this stuff more consistently now that my life's kind of settling down a little bit. Oh, did I lose you there, Aiden? All right, I think Aizen froze or I froze. Uh, yeah, James. There might be some play in the Librarius Conclave, but I find that we have such good other characters to put in units that bring in librarians instead of them. This feels bad to me, but there could be a way to make it work. I'm trying to remember the angelic inheritors right off the top of my head. And welcome back, Aiden.
Hey, sorry about that. My internet went out, but
That's right. So I got a question here. Speaking of Blood Angels, would we have been happy with the angelic inheritors as Space Wolves instead of Blood Angels?
so I think the answer is yep, likely. They get a couple interesting buffs. They get to choose like one of three buffs. One is reroll hit rolls of one and wound rolls of one for a character unit. These are all on character units. I think one is +2 move. I'm gonna look that up really quick because I've
Yeah,
got.
I was trying to. Yeah, I couldn't remember off the top of my head, so I wasn't sure if you did. I thought it was okay. I still personally think I like Champions of Rust better than that, just because I've had games where I get all like normally you can get 3 of them up, but occasionally you'll get all 4 up, and like the army is just so crazy once you get sustained and lethal up. Once you can start adding the 6 up feel no pain, like those 3 are amazing. The +1 OC isn't. I mean, if you get that up, you're probably already winning that game. That's just like a win
Exactly.
more. Like,
Yeah.
although
So
I did have one game recently where I got a rapid ingress Logan, and on my turn charged this shot and charged a squad of 10 cultists and killed them and got that up real early in the game, and it was hilarious. But that never happens.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I really do like the Angel of the Inheritors. You get to pick um, two buffs, 2 or 3 buffs. You get to fall back, shoot, and charge. You get to reroll hits, wounds of one, and then you get to advance and charge. Reroll advance and charges for this unit. These are all on character units. So I think the answer
Yeah,
is we really would have liked it because we already are taking a lot of character units.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. The only thing I'd say is like the reroll charges. We already can get that from Logan on our impertinent turn. The fallback and charge, we can still do that with one unit with the CP. And then we still get the Champions Rough buffs on top of it. So I do
yeah,
think it's better than Champions of Fenris, but it still would have been like, this isn't better than what we already have.
yeah, it's different. I don't think it's strictly better than Champions. It has some interesting things like lone op on a unit.
Yeah.
Um, it's definitely an interesting detachment. I really want to
Oh,
see it
yeah.
on the table.
It's definitely better than Champions of Fenris.
Oh, totally. Oh my gosh. I think Champions of Fenris probably is one of the worst detachments that came out in the entire December. I
Yeah,
mean,
I would agree with that.
I'm sure there are going to be some contenders, maybe like the Sisters one or the
Yeah, the Votan
um,
was underwhelming as well.
yeah. It's pretty underwhelming, but
Yeah,
maybe we'll see people. I don't know.
yeah. All right, guys. Any more last questions before we get out of here? I think we've covered most of the stuff we wanted to get over. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. As long as Aiden's available, I'll start trying to do this a couple times a month, maybe.
Yeah,
We were
awesome,
supposed
man.
to
I'd
start
love to
doing
be
that
on.
before, and then I got busy and stopped making videos there for a minute just because I had stuff going on in life. But now that I'm back, I'd like to start doing this, more often. Talk about what events we did, what lists we took, how stuff was going for us, what matchups were hard, how we could counter it in the future. Just anything we can to help give any info we pick up, pass it on to other people.
On the Wolves. Yeah, man. Love to. Yeah,
All
had a
right.
great
Well,
time.
yep. All right. Well, thank you for coming, Aiden. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you guys next time.
All right.